Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Thomas Wooden Railway discussion. Today's topic is on D199, otherwise known as Spam Can, otherwise known as Old Reliable. This guy has a lot of nicknames because honestly, it's really hard to say D199 or Diesel 199 all the time. So anyway, this is a character that originated in the Railway series. Him and along with Diesel 101, who was then nicknamed Bear because he growls. That's another story. These two diesels came to the railway and they immediately caused trouble. You know, there was always a rift in the Railway series between, the diesels and the steam engines because the diesel engines were newer and were going to take the steam engine's place, and obviously the steam engine still wanted to prove that they were really useful. So what ended up happening to D199 here is that he ended up being a really pompous engine and thinking it was great and spectacular, and he ended up failing in miserable fashion. Whereas his friend, his, comrade, 7101, was a much nicer diesel, and after they both failed miserably while pulling important trains, Sir Topham Hatt actually sent Diesel 199 away, and he ended up keeping 7101, aka Bear. So this diesel doesn't have a whole lot of good history when it comes to Thomas and Friends. However, he has a very interesting history when it comes to the Thomas Wooden Railway. So D199 was originally sold beginning in around like 1996 or so. I think my version is 1999. And this was a character I never had as a kid. I don't even remember seeing it in stores because he's a very obscure character. And the big part as to why this character didn't sell well is because that one story from the book Enterprising Engines that 7101 and 199 were featured in was never adapted for television. It was called Super Rescue, by the way. It was never made into a TV series episode, probably due to just the cost of making two brand new diesels that would likely only appear in that episode. So kind of like the Flying Scotsman and Wilbert and Frank and a lot of other characters out there, this was sort of a weird time where learning curve was, being experimental, trying to see what would sell, what wouldn't sell. And so they released this Railway series exclusive character. It probably didn't go over super well because he was retired and discontinued shortly thereafter. But I want to take a look at D199's face, which is really interesting because he's supposed to be a very grumpy and rude diesel, but in all of his Thomas Wooden Railway models, as you're going to see here, he actually has a pretty happy face. So I don't know, maybe this was maybe the mold of his face was taken after he learned he was going back to the other railway. But I've always liked D199's color. It's like a turquoise blue, or a light blue if you wanna. He's got some very intricate detailing all around his body because he's like a super modern, sleek diesel. And of course, the details are symmetrical, so what I show you over here is the same over there. He's got this nice yellow, just rectangle block of yellow on the back of him, which is just super interesting. What you're going to notice compared to the other models I'm going to show off here is that this version of D199 is very, blocky, rectangular, not the most aerodynamic, especially around the face here. You can kind of see like these sharp edges almost, where if he's traveling down the track at a high rate of speed, these corners are going to stick out and slow him down. Whereas in the next couple of versions, he's been streamlined, or it's like somebody's come along and sanded them down. My version doesn't have the name on the bottom, but in all his forms of merchandise, he's just been known. Oh, do you guys see that? It's like a crack in the paint there. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic. I just noticed that when the light was flashing across, you can see this crack. It doesn't look like it's in the wood. It kind of looks like it's on not really on the paint either. That's really interesting. Anyway, totally forgot what I was saying. But even though D199 doesn't have a very prestigious history, and a lot of kids, especially nowadays, don't know who he is, his wooden railway model is really nice. Even though he's portrayed extremely happy, like overly happy in my opinion. So this version was sold for a couple of years, and like Wilbur and Frank and any other character that was produced for the Learning Curve Wooden Railway system that never appeared in the TV series, he didn't last long, just because nobody knows who he is. He's just a generic diesel. So let me bring in the second version, which was released around 2005. And I think already you can kind of see, oh yeah, those, I don't know, blocky areas with the sharp corners have been sanded down, and he looks much better in my opinion. So this is technically a re-review, because I have looked at this version of D199 and I've looked at the next version of D199, but I'd never taken a look at this version because I never had him in my collection. So if you can believe it, this is the third separate review I've done on this same character. He just keeps adding forms of merchandise, or I keep accumulating forms of merchandise that I didn't have before, so that's why there's so many videos. The color looks a little bit lighter than the previous version, in my opinion. Some of the detailing on the side there, I mean, I could, really critique this and try to find all the similarities and differences, but whereas the lines over here are much thicker, they've kind of been thinned out over here. Still has that British Railway, I believe that's the British Railway's logo. If it's not, all the people in the comments are going to let me know, and we will definitely hear about it. But whereas, like this area on the back here is just all black, now it's sort of striped and shaded, so there's more detail going on here. And now that rectangle of yellow has in turn encompassed the entire back end of D199. The windows, I mean, if I can say something really quick, this version of D199, for being made in the mid-90s, or mid to late 90s, has a lot of detail on it. I mean, this is the era that we're still talking, I mean, I think the tender engines still only had, they didn't even have the speckled painted on coal. It was just the black paint that was applied across the top of the tender to represent coal. So if I can give props to this version of D199, even though it's not 100% accurate, especially with the face, there is a ton of detailing on this model. So kudos to Learning Curve. They didn't get it exactly right in terms of the aesthetics and the overall design of D199, because really D199 is supposed to look like the diesel, and he doesn't, with that curvature, obviously, this is a much better version in my opinion. But Learning Curve, still got some things right. They missed it on others. But anyway, let me get back to this. It's like the 2005 re-release version, obviously with some updates. We finally have a name on the bottom, and that looks like a recall code, or just, manufacturer's codes, which applies to the paint and the wood and all that. So the color is a little bit different. The top is also a little bit different. Again, areas that used to just be all black have now actually, we have a little bit more detail going on there. And the windows, this is what I was getting at before I went on that tangent. We actually have some like wipers on the windows in case it's like a rainy day out and, I don't know, somebody's looking out the back. But the wipers actually continue over to the front here, is what I'm getting at. Whereas the old D199's face is somewhat round. The front and the back, as you can tell, are very squarish or rectangular-ish, and the face doesn't fit extremely naturally, whereas this face fits much better. And it's really weird that D199, in all three versions of his Wooden Railway models, has a yellow face. I guess what this is supposed to represent is that the face is part of the body of the engine, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because, I just looked at Scruffy and I talked about how, in the Railway series, Scruffy had a black face, but now in the TV series and his merchandise, it's like he has a white or gray face that looks like its own separate piece, but it's not like you're ever going to come up and take the face off of one of these engines. So anyway, it's just very unique that D199 has a yellow face. That'll be an interesting, topic of discussion in the comments below. What is the yellow face supposed to represent? That's kind of my interpretation of it. It's like, it dates back to, the days of the Railway series where the engines, I guess with the exception of the steam engines, really didn't have, any of the engines didn't have their own individual faces. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's probably a right answer out there, but I've never really 100% gotten, the point of that. But overall, if I can get back to the subject at hand, this version of D199 still looks really nice. He looks a little bit calmer, whereas this version is like super happy. This one's just kind of a smug face, like, hi, I'm here, but I'm not like the life of the party or anything like that. So this version of D199 wasn't sold for super long either. It's very interesting that a character never appeared in the TV series has 3 wooden railway models for some reason. But that's just how it's done, I guess. So then we move on to the third version, which I have already reviewed way back in 2013. This was actually one of the first new products that Fisher-Price and Mattel released when they bought the brand from Learning Curve / Tomy. And it's very, very similar to the version we just looked at. There's definitely more differences between here and here than here and here. But nonetheless, I'll review and compare and contrast. The face is even much smugger and almost quieter than the previous version. So if we take a look at the evolution of the face here, we go from really happy to just kind of, yeah, a grin, you know, big smile, grin, I guess is the best way to put it. The face is also a little bit lighter in terms of, I guess, the color yellow. But those same details are still there, if that makes sense. Like, there's really not a whole lot of changes going on, and looking at them side by side. Like, even like the length and the width of the stripes and the coloring is the same. On the back, the detailing, this is the 2005 version, so this is the newer version. The windows are a little bit smaller. We also have this AC-10 lettering on the back that is now actually thicker. And super, I don't know, minuscule detail. But whereas the entire back here is painted yellow, it actually stops on this version of D199. It stops right before, and I think that's because on these new Mattel versions, you know, I've talked about this before, it's like they sanded down the edges. The edges aren't sharp or anything, but they are less sharp than what they used to be on the Learning Curve models. But still, I mean, even up top here, the details are the exact same, which, I mean, from a consistency standpoint, that's very impressive. The windows are a tiny bit smaller up here too. But yeah, I don't really get the face, considering this Diesel was just known for being a grouch and being awfully mean. To give him a smiley face, I guess that's just to appease the kids, but at the same time, he's not a television series character, so in my opinion, it's like, you know what, go all out and give him a model or a representation worthy of his Railway series character, that, you know, being a mean Diesel. So that's just my opinion on why we get these smiley faces. It's like, you know, how Diesel used to have a grumpy face and Diesel 10 used to have an evil face, and now they don't. It's like, are we afraid to scare the children? I don't know. But anyway, compared to, I mean, we're almost looking at a 20-year difference, about a 15-year difference between these two. Yep, you know, some details are better than others when you take a look at the particular, you know, different versions, but overall pretty much the same. Yeah. I mean, I'm no Railway series expert, and I don't pretend to be, but, man, why would you give this guy 3 different wooden railway versions? It's really bizarre. I guess another difference, I talked about this in my review 5 years ago, since this is a Mattel product, the bogies or the chassis down here have been switched to plastic as like a cost-cutting measure. Do these say 2013? 2012. I guess. It's hard to believe. Like, when I first got this, you know, it was such a big deal because it was a Mattel Fisher-Price product, you know, and I remember jiggling him around because, you know, you can hear the difference in the bogies. But now, like 5 years on, it's just, you know what? I would give anything to go back to this, considering where everything else is going. So anyway, those are the 3 different versions of D199, aka Old Reliable, because he's not, and Spam Can. I call him Spam Can in my series just because it's a lot easier to say than D199 or Diesel 199. But that's just me. you know, he's supposed to be just a generic diesel from the other railway, so that's why he doesn't have a name, he just has a number. But Spam Can, that's a pretty, you know, clever name, so I enjoy calling him that. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words as to why somehow this guy got 3 different wooden railway models, all from different eras of, you know, the wooden railway era of toys, so to speak. You know, this is prime learning curve, mid to late 90s. Things were going really well. They could afford to take risks with these type of characters that, you know, they probably knew wouldn't sell well, but they were just taking a guess. Then we have this, you know, mid 2000s. I don't think the lead paint crisis had occurred at this point, but nonetheless, you know, they're trying to find something. They'll see if it works. And then Mattel and Fisher Price, I presume they were just looking at learning curves blueprints, and they were like, you know what, this guy hasn't been produced in like 10 years, we should make our own version. So I don't know, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on how this guy ended up with 3 wooden railway versions. If you're a younger kid, you know, do you even know about Diesel 199? If you've never read the Railway series, how have you heard about him? Is Wooden Railway your only form of knowing about this character? I know he did get a take-along version, but no Trackmaster, and there was an Ertl version way back, I want to say in the 90s. Excuse me. But he had a really happy face. In fact, he had like an even happier face than what we see here. So I think it's the reason they gave him a happy face is just to not scare the kids. But at the same time, we have characters like Diesel and Diesel 10 that, and Vinny even nowadays, that, you know, not everybody has a happy face, nor should everybody have a happy face. It just depends on the character. But anyway, this video has been a long time coming because I've had this version of D199 for a little while. I actually had a different version that was used, and then I found a really good deal for a new one. So I knew this video was inevitable. It just seems like a whole waste of space because I did a review back in 2011 on this version of Spam Can. Then in 2013 I compared these two, and now in 2018 I'm comparing all 3. So sort of a backwards way of doing things. Obviously, if I had it my way, if I could see the future, I would just compare them all in one video. But who knew at the time, especially in 2011 when I made that first video, I could always come back and get this version off of eBay. But I'm thinking there's no way, you know, we're ever getting another version. And who knows, we may end up with a Thomas Wood version of this guy, and I'll have to make an update to this video, a re-review, so to speak. So anyway, I guess that's it for this video. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on D199 as just a character and as a wooden railway model. In my opinion, he's easily forgettable, but he's got just incredible detail all the way through that you just can't beat. So he's been fairly consistent with that detailing, which is obviously impressive. So anyway, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.